Hi, this is Dr. Nick. I'm the Incrementalist, and I'm looking for healthy insights for better health outcomes. One of the videos I posted, and certainly some of the articles that I posted over the course of the last several months, that has really seen a lot of attention based on the number of views, comments, and so forth, has been around intermittent fasting or time-restricted fasting or feeding. So I thought it would be worth covering that again. A lot of people focus on the new year and the opportunities for resolutions and activities. And one of the things that really strikes me about this is that it is such a safe activity. The opportunity for anybody to get involved or try this is really wide open. And the publications and the science behind this, whilst not clear, to be quite frank, really suggest that there are some very, very useful benefits to restricting calorie intake in our general daily lives. If you think about it logically, that's how we developed over the course of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. We lived in a fasting and famine kind of environment, and when food was available, we essentially had to maximize our capacity to consume it because we couldn't store it. We didn't have readily available food. So over the course of that extended period of time, these bodies were essentially fine-tuned for that specific environment. So everything that our body does is really designed to maximize calorie absorption and inclusion to make up for the times when we don't or have no access to calories. Now we live, for the most part, and I know that's not true for everybody, but for the most part we live in a world of plenty, certainly in the many of the developed countries. And what that means is we've got ready access to all of this food all of the time. Now our body is saying, oh my goodness, there's food there. I've got to grab it, take it, and absorb it. So part of the challenge that we have is that we're programmed to essentially gather and lay down that as fat and absorb as much of that as possible. Intermittent fasting essentially introduces something that used to be the case many years ago for our world and our community, and sort of replaces the experience with an artificial inducement of this lack of availability of calories. And what seems to be happening is that stimulates our body in appropriate ways. And I can tell you from my personal experience, it's been fantastic. I know initially it was a little bit hard, and for some people it's harder. And I'll come back to some of the suggestions as to how you might approach it. But ultimately, it's become almost natural to me, and I will do it on a regular basis in different forms. So there's time-restricted fasting where you just limit a certain period of the day, so 12 and 12. So you eat for 12 hours and don't eat for 12 hours. Quite frankly, that's almost like sleeping. So if you slept for 12 hours and then you were eating during the day. So we do a lot of it sort of almost natively. But extending that a little bit more to 18-6, so fasting for 18 hours and then maybe at midday starting to eat. Ask yourself this question: why do you eat breakfast? If the answer to that is not because I'm hungry, then that's a problem. I would suggest that that's the first place you should start. So the incremental step that you could take is to ask yourself every morning, am I hungry? And if you're not hungry, then perhaps you should skip or pass on that breakfast meal. That might not be true every breakfast, but the reality is, certainly it was for me, what I found was that breakfast was just a habit. That was something that we were told and we do as part of our daily routine because we must have calories. Having had the experience of putting a continuous glucose monitor on myself for a 14-day period, I found that I really didn't need the calories. In fact, my glucose level rises as we approach the morning time and I come to wake up. So the body is naturally cycling and saying, Nick is going to get up, he needs energy, so we'll release all of that energy, and I've got plenty of it, too much of it still, and there's plenty of it around. So we don't need it for energy during the day. Now, you may find that it's a little bit challenging and you have to take some calories first thing in the morning. If that's you, that's great, but maybe you have a fast at a different period of time. Try and start with some small period of time. It can be easier following sleep because you've already got whatever period of time you're asleep for. So start with small fasts or small periods of time and try and extend it over the course of time and do it on a regular basis. This has to become something that's a habit. You can't just try it a couple of times for a week or so, much like I see in my gym, which is we have the January crowd that shows up with all of these great intentions, and all of the fitness classes are too busy, you can't find any space. But by February, and certainly the end of February, it's all back to normal and it's just the regular crowd. It's making those habits. So find a way to make it a habit. Ask yourself that simple question: why am I having this meal? If it's not because you're hungry, then you probably shouldn't be having it. And then I would tell you that you can start with sort of modified versions of this if you need to take a small amount of calories. Some people find that that's easier. I find coffee as a help to me during my fasting days, although interestingly, what I discovered with the continuous glucose monitor was that coffee put up my glucose levels, whereas when I had a pure water fasting day, those glucose levels were absolutely steady state throughout the day. The other key incremental piece of advice: you get so much of your fluid requirements through food. If you're not eating food, you really have to up the consumption of liquids, and that's liquids without calories preferably. Water is your best, most preferred choice, but if you can't go with that, find things that have little to no calories. Coffee is okay, tea can be okay, but if you're adding milk, and certainly if you're adding sugar, that's not satisfying the need. Try it. I think you're going to find over the course of a period of time, perhaps 2-3 months, and how long that takes is entirely dependent on you, your existing habits. But if you can stick with it to the point where you go, wow, this isn't quite so difficult, you might be able to start doing it. And I think you'll start to realize some of the benefits that we can clearly see based on people doing intermittent fasting. And from a health and feeling standpoint, what you might find is that you actually feel better as a result of this. Certainly not initially, but as you start to get into the rhythm, you may find that's the case. Hopefully this is helpful. Happy to hear comments. If you've got some interest in the topic, please leave me some notes in the bottom. If you're interested in sponsoring any of these videos, please reach out to me directly. Otherwise, I'm Dr. Nick, I'm the Incrementalist. I'm always looking for healthy insights to improve your health.